Summer may be coming in fits and starts this year, but it is definitely coming. And seeing as it's been warm enough for me to work outside today, that I'm taking that as my sign that it's time to kick off the book break summer content. And so the first summary video of the year that I'm going to make is a sort of summer bucket list. So now is finally the time, if you're going on a holiday, if you're taking some time sitting outside in the sun one weekend, now is finally the time to catch up on some of these amazing reads. So I'm going to start with some books that have film or TV adaptations, so that now is definitely the time to read them. Starting with a show I'm so excited for. So this book is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, which is a brilliant sci-fi terrifying thriller. I absolutely loved it, and it is now on Apple TV, and I'm so excited to watch it. So this is about a man who suddenly wakes up in a life that isn't his own. Nothing is recognizable, and he realizes that someone from an alternate life that he might have had may have stolen his life. I first read this book a few years ago, and my heart was banging the whole time. My brain was spinning, thinking of a whole realm of terrifying possibilities. It's such a page turner and such a good book. I'm actually thinking I might do a reread of this one this summer and then watch the show. A show that is now on Disney Plus is Shard Lake, and that show is actually based on the Shard Lake series of books by the brilliant late C.J. Sansom. This is the first book, Dissolution. It's set in 1537, so we're in the court of Henry VIII. He has just declared himself supreme head of the Church of England, and Thomas Cromwell has sent Shardlake, a lawyer, to investigate very dark happenings at a monastery. So there's a whole series of these books that are so beloved, and I think this summer is the perfect time to catch up on them and then immerse yourself in the TV show. There's a lot of background noise, I apologise. It's the sounds of summer. I can hear children having fun at a playground. Some bird, I wish I was good at identifying bird noises, but I'm not. And a lot of planes. I think this is aeroplane time of day, but let's just say it's the sound of people going on summer holidays. Okay, a new HBO show starring Kate Winslet is coming, of Trust, based on this book, Trust by Hernan Diaz, which is such an interesting book and actually such a good one for you to read over the summer when you've got some real time to dedicate to quite how clever and layered this book is. It's a book told in parts, and it's kind of a book within a book. So the first section of the novel is a novel in of itself, a novel called Bonds, which tells the story of a Wall Street tycoon and his very glamorous wife. And then we kind of hear different versions of that story over and over again, told from different perspectives and highlighting different versions of the truth. And so it's sort of up to you to compare all of these versions and try and work out what the real truth is underneath it all. So it's a novel all about storytelling and the fiction that we tell ourselves about our own life in a way. And then one more for their adaptation section, Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. The sequel to this movie has just been announced, and I'm so excited. If you didn't see the first film, catch up because it was delightful. I loved it. I watched it twice, pretty much back to back. So that is based on the book Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, which is a romance between the Prince of England and the son of the President of the United States. They are rivals, they are enemies, who, for the good of foreign relations, are told to pretend to be friends, and then this fake friendship turns into a real something else ship, and it is steamy and romantic and fun, and I really recommend it. Now I'm going to recommend a book which isn't actually one of ours, so not a Pam Macmillan book, but if you want to get excited for a very highly anticipated sequel, I would recommend using this summer to catch up on the book Brooklyn by Colm Tóibín, or watch the movie Brooklyn. Because in news that has been met with great excitement, Colm Tóibín is coming out with a sequel called Long Island, and this follows the same characters from Brooklyn. We catch up with them years later and dive straight back into all of the love and heartache from the first story. So catch up with Brooklyn if you haven't already, so that you can join the hype of everyone who is so excited for Long Island. Interrupting here, this point, such a loud plane is flying over my head that I really cannot even hear what I'm saying. So I will explain that at this point I am talking about the Women's Prize being one of my favourite prizes to follow along with, and introducing an amazing Women's Prize long-listed book, Western Lane by Chetna Maru. This book was also Booker shortlisted for the 2023 Booker, so real prize material here, and bonus, it's a really nice short little book for you to catch up on very quickly. So you have to have this one on your summer bucket list. It's a very moving book about grief and about the love between a father and a daughter. So it's about an 11-year-old girl being coached by her father in squash. And this is while she is grieving after the death of her mother. And so it's also about sisterhood, because we follow as this girl processes her grief differently from the way that her sisters are doing so. So it's about love and family and grief and squash. And then another book from the Women's Prize long list that has now been nominated for a Crime Writers Award is The Maiden by Kate Foster. So this is a historical mystery, and it's actually based on a true story. So it's set in Scotland in 1679, and it's about a woman who has been arrested on suspicion of murdering her lover. So she'd been having an affair and now she's been accused of murdering him. And the book poses a lot of questions, like why would a woman this privileged throw so much away, risk so much for an affair and for this crime? Is she really the most likely person to have murdered this man? And why do so many societies refuse to listen to women's voices? Then moving on to some books that have been at the heart of a lot of conversations, so you can use this summer to catch up and be able to join in talking to everyone about these books, starting with James by Percival Everett, which has got so much hype at the moment. This is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of the enslaved Jim. So Percival Everett is giving James a new name and a voice to tell his own story. And it's such a fantastic book. Let me tell you, the hype is real. The novel is told with Percival Everett's trademark wit. He is so good at using humour to write about often very horrifying topics and to really shine a light on things that we need to revisit slightly differently in our heads. So it's a very, very clever book. You don't have to have read Huckleberry Finn to dive straight into this one. You get all of the adventure story told to you from the original Huckleberry Finn, but with a very, very different perspective. So this is a book really to read if you want to join in with something that everyone is talking about. Similarly, One of the Good Guys by Araminta Hall is a feminist thriller that has also been at the heart of a lot of conversations, a lot of debates as well. So this is a book told from a few different perspectives about a man who really truly believes that he is one of the good guys. And I found it fascinating watching the reviews come in for this book since it came out in January, because I wasn't even expecting quite how many different opinions people would have about this book, and that's what makes a book great. I've been loving that. A book that absolutely exploded onto the scene last year was Everything's Fine by Cecilia Robes, and the paperback is coming out this summer. It's going to look like this. It's a whole brand new look, and if you haven't read it, if you didn't read it last year, if you didn't join in with the many, many debates about this book, then this summer is your time to catch up and learn what this is all about. So this is a book that book clubs were absolutely loving last year because there is so much to talk about in this one. It's about a young black girl called Jess who starts going out with a white conservative boy called Josh, and slowly begins to realise as their relationship goes on quite how different they are and quite how perhaps incompatible they are. But it's also about Jess navigating the world in terms of her job, realising that there are so many ways in her life in which she perhaps isn't living in line with her values and what she wants to do about that. I loved Jess as a character. I thought the book did such a good job of exploring what it's like being a young woman setting out in the world and trying to navigate through life, but of course also diving into really deep and really interesting conversations around race as well. So I thought it was a fascinating book, and definitely add it to your conversation starter summer TBR. And then almost finally, my penultimate recommendation If you just want to read one book this summer, which is going to guarantee you'll be able to join in with the most conversations around books, I would say it has to be The Women by Kristen Hanna, because everyone seems to be reading and talking about this book. It's a book that I keep seeing people just out and about in public reading. It's a book that so many of my friends and family are talking about. It has been such a massive hit, and so if you get FOMO and you want to make sure that you've read the book that everyone is talking about, it's got to be The Women, which tells the story of a young woman who goes off to become a nurse in the Vietnam War. And it's about redefining what it means to be a hero, because in the world that she lives in and her family, women aren't really considered able to be heroes, and she's going to challenge that notion. It's a really page-turning and moving novel about trauma and about grief, but also about strength and about friendship, particularly about female friendship. And there's a love story as well. And then finally, I have one more recommendation for you in this video. This is my wildcard entry, but this is really what a summer bucket list TBR is all about. Because if you haven't yet read this book, now is your time to catch up. This summer, I think you should read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which is just the first in a still ongoing series. There are still more of these books coming out, and they seem to be just getting more and more beloved. So I of course love this series because this is a time travel series, and time travel is my favorite subgenre. But if you're not a time travel person, do not be put off. These books are for everyone. These are delightful books set in a Japanese cafe, in which people who visit the cafe have the opportunity to travel in time, to have a conversation with somebody from their life, to revisit a moment, perhaps to go into the future and talk to somebody to find out something from the future. And there are a lot of rules about time travel. It's a very quirky little series of books. The most important being that when you travel in time, you must come back to the present before the coffee gets cold, hence the name. This book is a global bestseller. Everyone is loving this book, and you will too. I promise you will. So put it on your summer TBR. So those are my recommendations for the books that I think you need to catch up on this summer. It's the perfect time. Head outside, find somewhere nice, find a nice park to lie out in, and bring one of these books. And let me know in the comments below which of these you are most excited to add to your summer TBR. I'll link here to a playlist of all of our other summery book break content, so do click through and have a browse, and I'll see you next time.